We are witnessing the collapse of the mainstream media in real time, and this is not something that is unusual in the face of disruption. I have two sources and some thoughts on the topic. The first source here, embattled MSNBC, will keep its name after Comcast spinoff by Alexandra Steigard from the New York Post. And the article says this: left leaning cable channel MSNBC will get to keep its name after it is spun off by Comcast, the company said. Mark Lazarus, who will lead the new company consisting of MSNBC and other cable assets, very notable here, other cable assets, told MSNBC staffers of the plan after he broke the news that MSNBC president Rashida Jones is leaving the company. There was concern that being hived off from the NBC mothership would force a change in branding, as the Post reported. I know there was some discussion with the MSNBC name, so you can take that off your worry list on things, Lazarus said at the meeting. Uh, Keeping the name might be part of the problem here. MSNBC is known as a thing. If they are wishing to change the tides of time, they need to change their name as well. I look at what happened with Twitter and X. When Elon Musk bought it, one of the first things that he did, one of the first changes he made, was to change the name to X. It is now X. That is something that was almost 0% signed off on at the time, but now people are calling it something different than Twitter. Part of that, according to Elon Musk, was that there was so much baggage with the name Twitter, with what Twitter was and what it was known for, that changing the name was absolutely imperative on starting something new, on turning the page from what Twitter was to what X will be. The article continues, the only thing I'll say is the worst thing any leader can do is change something that's working just because they can. So if this is working, then there's no reason to change it. The very fact that you have to say this is indicative of the fact that it's not working. You're being spun off as MSNBC because things aren't going to plan if there is a plan. Comcast announced in November that it plans to spin off its NBC Universal cable TV networks, including MSNBC and CNBC, in 2025, sending staffers at the left-leaning network into a panic over their future. And those aren't the only changes, as we said here, and we will talk about a little bit later. Rashida Jones has left as well. Pardon me. Comcast announced in November that it plans to spin off its NBC Universal cable networks. Right, I already read that. My fault. At the time, Lazarus didn't have many answers for staffers who wondered if the network would remain under its 30 Rock headquarters and how it would manage without the shared reporting from their sister network, NBC News, which Comcast will retain. The sharing of ideas between these entities is, again, part of the problem. It is not a sharing ideas as much as it is a revving up of the exact same narratives that need to be broken. On Tuesday, Lazarus tried to steady the ship despite news of Jones' departure. He named Rebecca Cutler as Jones' replacement on an interim basis and said she will be hiring a head of news gathering and head of talent. Sources told the Post that MSNBC talent and staffers expressed sadness over Jones' decision to leave, which has been punctuated by steep ratings declines following the presidential election of Donald Trump. This is something that is very confusing to me, and I think that it is being played up by the legacy media. The ratings collapses that they have seen may have been instigated in part by the re-election of Donald Trump. That's not where they started. The problem here is not that Donald Trump was elected. Donald Trump did not get elected and all of a sudden press some button that shut off part of these news agencies' ratings. That is silly. That did not happen. What is going on here is that the constituency of individuals who had watched that programming, fed into the narrative being propagated, decided, hey, we've been lied to. We cannot continue to invest our time in these news agencies if we're not being told the truth. All people are asking is to be told the truth. Everything that had been told to them about this election, it turns out, was false. That's really what's going on here. The second source here is from Brian Stelter himself. MSNBC chief Rashida Jones steps down as network prepares for a spinoff by Brian Stelter from CNN. Notice the difference in tones from these articles. Rashida Jones is stepping down as president of MSNBC, and one of her top lieutenants, Rebecca Cutler, is taking over as the interim network president. The change atop the progressive news network comes as its corporate parent Comcast prepares to spin off MSNBC and other cable channels into a separate publicly traded company. Mark Lazarus, the future CEO of the spinoff, said in a Tuesday morning memo that Jones had expertly navigated MSNBC through a years-long, unrelenting, and unprecedented news cycle, all while driving the network to record viewership and making investments in nonlinear business. Record viewership is a far cry from the previously stated idea and reality that they have been having a ratings collapse, is it not? Now, Lazarus said he will collaborate with Cutler as we shape our collective future together. Among the looming questions, will MSNBC alter its approach to political coverage as President-elect Donald Trump regains power? Once the spinoff takes effect, the network will move out of its iconic Rockefeller Center office space. Jones' decision to leave resolves one of the other questions that has been looming over the network. Oliver Darcy of Status reported last month that she was mulling an exit in early 2025. Jones took charge around the same time 4 years ago, reflecting the fact that TV news transitions, often coincide with presidential election and inauguration cycles. So the argument being presented here by Stelter is that this is just part of it. This is just what happens. The fact that transitions often coincide with presidential election and inauguration cycles should be something that is setting off alarm bells in itself. This is not just part of the times. This is not just a sign of secular changes. This is something that is unprecedented. This is something that is a collapse of what it is they have been doing. Jones was a historic pick, the first black person to run a major television news network. She recruited new hosts like Jen Psaki and prioritized digital expansions of the MSNBC brand in 2022. She hired Cutler from CNN. Cutler spent 20 years at CNN. 20 years prior to a handful of years ago, there was little disruption of the mainstream media. Cutler spent 20 years at CNN, first as an intern for one of anchor Wolf Blitzer's programs in the Washington, D.C. bureau. Pardon me. She later became a key producer, launched several shows for CNN, oversaw a roster of analysts and commentators, and headed up programming for CNN Plus, the short-lived streaming news service. I believe Stelter himself had something to do with this. At MSNBC, Cutler has been a catalyst for growth across our digital, social, and audio platforms, resulting in across-the-board record audience engagement. Lazarus wrote in his memo, during a Tuesday morning conference call with staffers, Lazarus said Cutler will be hiring a head of news gathering and a head of talent as she builds out a leadership team. Lazarus also put an end to speculation that MSNBC might rebrand itself once it is spun off from NBC. The cable news network will keep its name, she said. Lazarus noted that Cutler was promoted just last week to oversee all-daytime programming on MSNBC, in addition to her existing role running podcast, films, live events, streaming, and digital platforms. This tells me that just last week, this individual was set on a different path, a path that did not include the current path. Says that this was not something that was projected. This is not something that was planned on. That this is something that is taking the staff at least by surprise. In her own memo to staff, Jones said she made the decision to leave the network over the holidays while reflecting on our remarkable journey. That timing is dubious indeed, if you ask me. While Jones did not indicate what she plans to do next, she expressed confidence that MSNBC is well positioned for the future. That is indelibly false. There is no way that any of these mainstream media platforms are well positioned for the future, because the future does not include their cable networks at all. Leaving the decision to leave this platform, to leave MSNBC, we have to wonder whether or not this is a plan to leave the platform or if she is being excused. Oftentimes, with positions such as this, what actually happens is there is a meeting and someone has said, look, if you don't leave, you will be fired. Whether or not they would have fired this individual, we don't know. We can't know. I think it is probable. I don't think that someone makes the decision to leave an MSNBC if things are going hunky-dory for both parties. On Monday, Jones announced that MSNBC's best-known host, Rachel Maddow, is returning to the 9 p.m. hour 5 nights a week. Returning 5 nights a week for Trump's first 100 days. That is a temporary plan. Now, there was a video, covering this very same topic on the YouTube channel WDW Pro. During this conversation, Culture Casino, a creator on YouTube, made the assertion that Rachel Maddow doing this for the first 100 days is a Hail Mary attempt. I think he's slightly wrong on that assertion. I think that what MSNBC is looking at is that Rachel Maddow is their only it's all they have. I don't even know that it's profitable because Rachel Maddow comes with such a very high price tag. I think that in the coming days, the coming months, the coming years, what we're going to see is even more turnover such as this. We're going to see the Rachel Maddows of the world, who I believe is currently hosting 1 hour per week. The networks themselves are going to look at this and decide, we can't keep on this path. We cannot continue to pay such high prices for personalities that are simply not bringing in the ratings, not bringing in the audience they have to bring in order to justify the contracts that to which they have been signed. There has been a lot of speculation over different individuals, namely Elon Musk, buying things like MSNBC and just completely tearing them down from the inside in order to rebuild something that is profitable. We have to understand that this is a profit question. If people are not tuning in, advertisers will not buy those advertising slots. They will not spend the money necessary to float the contract of someone like Rachel Maddow, and therefore Rachel Maddow becomes an expense, not an asset, a liability, as opposed to something that is bringing in money. We're going to continue to see this we're going to continue to see the MSNBCs of the world pumping their content onto platforms like YouTube. And basically, that's the only one right now. It's just YouTube. And because of this, because the prices are so high, because the returns are so meager, we're going to continue to see, in my opinion, things being spun off. So we will see, for example, AT&T spinning off Warner Brothers a while ago. We're going to see consolidation in that kind of secondary market of AT&T becomes AT&T and Warner Brothers. This becomes the Comcast and MSNBC. Now you have Warner Brothers and MSNBC that are going to have high prices, low income. They will start to merge. We're seeing this already in the automotive industry, with several of the incumbents deciding to collaborate on things, and it's not going to work out there either. There are going to be continued collapse of the resources necessary, or the continued collapse of support, which will make the resources necessary to run these programs more and more difficult to fund. So just like with the car industry, with innovators like BYD and Tesla tearing apart the previously established profit centers for these businesses, they are lower cost, they are higher efficiency. The legacy media, just like Ford and GM and all of the incumbents in the automotive sector, are realizing they have done business in the wrong way for too long. They got too comfortable. Their money was coming in and they were afraid to rock their boats, their own boats. This is the innovator's dilemma, and we're going to continue to see this collapse. This is not the first. It will not be the last. And it's going to be a very interesting next couple of years until there is sort of homeostasis found. Where is the median here? And I think there will be the emergence of more and more platforms like YouTube that become profit centers for these classic legacy media apparati, and the narrative itself will be destabilized. It will not be you turn on the TV, you get the news, you believe it. That has already collapsed. This is just another symptom of the larger problem of the mainstream media not having control over the narrative. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate things like this, hitting a like button really does help me out. If you decide that you are here by chance but not design and want more, hit the subscribe button to stick around for more content such as this in the future.